preteen that first and foremost, they must love themselves. Be proud of who they are, to know that they can and will make mistakes, that life will not always be a rose garden. It will not always be pleasant. It's not always a movie. It's not always a video game. That there are people out there who are evil. There are people who, once they see persons on a leadership track who are showing potential, are sometimes very unkind and very cruel and would want to take them or hit them off of a pedestal or to divert them completely from that leadership path that they're on. So in other words, I think that very, very soon we have to let young people who are showing leadership potential know that they must love themselves, they must believe in themselves, they must pursue their dreams, that they must pursue education, that they must be team players, but that in doing all of that, they must believe in themselves, be sure about themselves, and know that life will not always be a smooth road, but once they believe in themselves and they have a good support network, that they will be successful.
You know, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place right now. The new format this year is an hour with the possibility of an hour and a half. And you know, I'm sitting here listening to you, Anande, and learning so much, and I'm sure the audience is enjoying this. I am tempted to continue because I have some very interesting questions I really would like you to answer. But if you can spare us another 10
minutes.
Sorry, okay, awesome. So I will forsake the break if you don't mind.
Sure.
One of the things I want to ask you, women in leadership role are still a minority today, both in the general business world and politics. Given that status, how can these women truly serve as role models to other women?
Now, the women who are there have to serve as role models. And I will share with you that it has been the experience of women who work with women that sometimes, not all of the time, when women get into positions, what we call mainstream positions, we call it gender mainstreaming, that sometimes they forget where they come from. And it is very important through discussions like this to remind women generally that if they are in positions where they are role models, that they need sometimes to come out of their comfort zones. And one of my favorite sayings is, to whom much is given, much is expected. So, you know, sometimes it is very easy to be comfortable, to say, well, I have achieved, I am a lawyer, or I have achieved, you know, some very good position in whatever profession. But if we just sit there and we do not interact with society, we're not willing to come out and speak, to share, for example, to become involved in civil society. And different people do this in different ways. I've shared a little bit about how I interact with society. I do that through civil society work, through advocacy, through going on, you know, television shows, sitting on panel discussions, doing motivational talks. But other people do that through organizations such as Rotary, the Lions, putting themselves up for public office and public life. But if we have achieved certain positions, certain statuses in life, and we don't give back, we don't go back and work with the preteens, with the young leaders in the communities, well, then I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves and to other young people, other leaders who might not necessarily be as young, but who might be in their communities. They might be simple people, but they might be very good community leaders. And for them to go to the next level, for example, they may be the next constituency representative that will go to parliament if they would have had someone share with them, teach them how to dress, how to interact, how to face television interviews, how to, meet someone from the media, how to do some little task that they would not normally know how to do because they did not have the exposure. So I think this is very, very important.
In the chat room, Andrea said, interesting discussion. Thanks for returning. Learned more about your extensive journey and would hope you consider a political leadership role in Guyana. Anande, for those days when you do not feel like getting up and doing what you do, who or what gets you out of that mindset?
Generally, I'm a very optimistic person. Like everyone, I've had challenges in my life and lows in my life. But it is because I've had lows in my life that I generally do not allow myself to, get low again, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But, all of us face challenges. And I would say the reason I get up and get out at times and on days when I don't feel like doing it for whatever reason is because I am a person of great faith. I believe in God. I believe in myself. And I think that is very, very important. And I believe in myself because I have come through some times that have been wonderful, but I've also come through some personal times that have been very challenging and very difficult. I get up and go because I have people who love me. I have my husband who is always there for me. I have a wonderful network of friends. I have my son who supports me in all that I do. And, sometimes I do feel guilty because from as long as I know myself and he was young, I took him with me. So he has a lot of exposure to what I do because I didn't want him not to be a part of my life, even though I was a professional woman. My parents have been a wonderful support to me, my siblings and their love, my friends. And, earlier when I said about the diaspora, most of my friends live at the different corners of the world. I've had friends, of course, I have good friends and family members, especially in Guyana. And I have family members in England, in New York, in Canada. I've had friends who live in Japan, in China, you name it. You know how our diaspora is, both in Guyana and now that I've found new friends here as well in Grenada. Some of those friends as well emigrate to Canada, to America, to the Caribbean for whatever different reasons. So, it is because of my networks, my faith-based networks, and I have friends who belong to so many different religions and denominations, and they would pray with me. I've had friends from so many different Christian denominations, for example. Whenever I'm challenged, I say to them, look, I'm having a difficult time. Or I am challenged in how I should best, for example, mentor my own child. I need you to pray for me, to support me. And they would pray for me, and I would tell you, irrespective of which part of the world they are, and they would say, just tell me when. And this even happened recently. My friends in Guyana, and I will shout out my sister, Reverend Faye Clark. I have friends in Miami who said all they would say to me when I asked, will you pray with me and support me? during this particular challenge. Just tell me what time and for how long. My brother, he would say, how long? Just tell me when. My sister, my friends, wherever they are. I've had Hindu friends, Muslim friends say to me, we will pray with you if you have a challenge.
In the chat,
So,
Anande, Karen G said, ask in the chat room, right? Any thoughts as to how we can get girls into technology in the Caribbean? We really need them to start a huge tech explosion.
any thoughts on how we can get into
Get
technology?
girls into technology in the Caribbean.
Girls. I'll be very frank with you. Living in the Caribbean, I would say that girls have equal access to technology throughout the length and breadth of the Caribbean. So there is no, I would say, inequality there, whether it's in the school system or whether it is in the community. And I would say this because I had the good fortune to sit on the National Telecoms Regulatory Commission, which is a member of ECTEL, which is ECTEL is part of the Telecoms Regulatory Commission for the Eastern Caribbean. And I know for sure that most people in this part of the world, for example, have more than one phone, and very often there are smartphones. And I'm saying this to say the kind of tech access that we have here. IT, as we know, is taught in schools. It's a subject that the average child, once they remain in high school, can have access to. There are hotspots in communities where homes do not even have landlines. For example, near to where I live, there is a playground, and I would pass there in the nights and you would just see little lights blinking, because people could go with their little laptops, with their tablets, with their phones that have Wi-Fi access, and they can access that. And I'm saying all of this to say that I believe that girls do have equal access. Perhaps what they need to be encouraged to do is to pursue careers in IT. But I'll be very honest to say, in terms of encouraging our girls in terms of their equal access, equal opportunities to the technical side of things, I would say, especially for our younger generation, girls, that there is no disproportionate inequality in terms of their access.
Anande, I want to take a little bit time to ask you about your Caribbean experiences and tell us a little bit about what you do in terms of transformational leadership, in terms of women empowerment, women and children empowerment. Can you give us some examples of that?
Yes.
Give us some examples of that.
Yes. I really try to live what I believe, and because of that, I do a lot of work. Not only did a lot of work in Guyana, but I do a lot of work here in Grenada and a lot of work in the Caribbean with, opportunities that would look out for women and their empowerment. In particular, in the Caribbean, I mentioned that I am a part of this Caribbean Institute of Women in Leadership. And in particular, my personal passion is to work with women who are standing for office or thinking about standing for office in the Caribbean. And what we do, we mentor them. So, I was giving a few examples earlier. St. Lucia had their elections some time ago, and we worked with women who want us to work with them. And we actually I mentored women who were actually in Parliament and some who were aspiring to Parliament. I was very honest with them with respect to their chances, and sometimes some of them win and some of them lose. But whether they win or lose, our objective is that they put up the best possible showing, that they know to make demands of their individual political parties, irrespective of what parties they are, to ask for adequate budgets. Because in the Caribbean, we have seen that the political leaders are sometimes quite patronizing, I'll be honest, to their women who are running for political office, because they always tell them, look, if you don't win, we will make you a senator. So that sometimes make our women in politics somewhat comfortable knowing that if they don't win, they always have a fallback position. But for me, I always say to them, politics is a science. Many of them would say to us something like, oh, I've been the head of my mother's union, or I've been the head of a civil society organization. It is very, very different in terms of approach to trying to get into parliament in any part of the world, and in particular the Caribbean. And I remember my friend Elizabeth Thompson one time when we went to Antigua. She looked out at the women and, all nicely dressed, all of them wanting to get into politics and into parliament. And she said, politics is a blood sport. In other words, sometimes I also say, quoting from Steve Harvey, act like a lady, but think like a man when it comes to your politics. And I say that because if you want to run against a man in politics, yes, there are some things that will go, will have going for you as a woman, but it's an equal opportunity pursuit. You have to be thinking as a man would think. Mm-hmm. How am I going to win the votes in this constituency or in this particular area? So really and truly, you are a woman and you want to represent women, but it's a gender neutral space.
When you meet some of these leaders, these women leaders,
yes,
in the Caribbean, and they invite you perhaps to assist them in making this leap in politics. What are some commonalities you have discovered among Caribbean women in that political arena that you realize you have to get them to change or to shift their paradigm so that they have a better chance of winning?
I think just what I've said before. Sometimes they're a little bit complacent. Mm-hmm. They for example, we went to help, and I wouldn't say in which location, but we went to help a particular woman, and her pamphlets were all about her being like a Mother Teresa type of person. So we had to say, look, scrap this. This is not about whether, yes, you're a woman, yes, you're being supported by a woman's network, but you are also looking for the votes of women and you're looking for the votes of men. So you don't want to alienate the men in your community, in your society. You have to tell these men how you as a woman, a competent woman, will be able to come from your perspective of womanhood, but to help them to make their lot better as men as well. So, when we work with women in politics, we are coming from a place of gender mainstreaming, gender equality. So it's not you as the woman politician coming to say, I am better than, or because I'm a woman and I'm an aggressive woman, I am, going to get into politics. You come as a woman, you come from a place of respect, you come from a place of humility, a place of service within your community, and you must be able to rap with the guys on the street, as well as be equally comfortable with respect to working with the single mother or the female professional or whoever it is you will come across in terms of assisting or letting them know that you will be willing to assist them as their representative in the parliament.
Anande, your experience makes me curious, and I'll ask you this particular question.
Yes.
I understand that being president of Guyana may not be on the immediate horizon for you. This is coming from me, not the chat room. But let's say you were in a position where you were asked to lead a group, to form a group of women in Guyana, and you did so. What are 3 items on your agenda, 3 immediate items that you would like to implement?
What kind of group?
This would be a group that part of the chart will be for the empowerment of women and children, for coming up with innovation to help to advance women, and a group that Well, if it's from a civil society perspective, but a group that has some influence on the government of Guyana, what would be three items on your agenda?
Three items would be for such a group, because that would be a lobbying group if they were to have influence on a government, including the government of Guyana. These would have to be very competent women. Now, when I say competent, I don't necessarily mean that they must be all professional women, but they must be competent in whatever areas that they work in. And I'll give you an example. For example, I work in law, so I would, of course, be familiar with the laws of the country. And because of my further work with women's rights and children's rights and human rights, I am very familiar about governance, and democracy. But there are women who might not have had this exposure, but these women would have experience in terms of community mobilization. They may have experience with local government. For example, they would know how to mobilize women and men. They may have lost a child. They may have lost a loved one as a result of whatever, let's say domestic violence or suicide. So they can bring to the table an experience that is unique to them, that they are competent to speak about. They might be survivors of domestic violence or themselves or whatever it is. So that would be what I'd be looking for: competence and a passion and a belief in whatever they are going to be approaching the government to speak about. I would say, irrespective of wherever their status in society is, they are articulate. And three, I would have to say that they must be capable of working as a team, capable of sometimes, and this is what transformational leadership is about. There are times, for example, when I sit on a team and I may have more experience or more knowledge about a particular area, but I have to listen to someone who's also a team member because they have something that is unique or an experience that is unique to bring to the table. And sometimes they may have a passion about what it is that the team is advocating for, lobbying about, and you let that person take the lead. And a very good example of this is one of our sisters who very often shares with us on transformational leadership, and that is Dr. Rosina Wilshire. And she always shares about this story of the Canadian geese and how they fly and their patterns. From time to time, one leader goes forward, and then that leader drops back, and another of the group of the flying geese will go forward, and the one that is going forward will pull the ones that are becoming tired and lagging. So they each take turns in going forward so that the team moves forward. Mm-hmm. And this is what, for me, I would want to impart to such a group that will go forward to lobby in terms of civil society, and perhaps to negotiate and lobby with a government, any government, whether it's in Guyana or anywhere. That would be the model that I would be perhaps sharing and imparting so that that group could be successful.
I love your answer. And
Thank you.
time is upon us, so I'm going to ask you some quick answer questions. Like, sure. When are you most happy?
Well, there are a few times when I'm most happy. Sometimes I'm most happy when I'm alone and I'm singing or I'm humming. Well, normally I would hum and sing when I'm alone, only when I'm happy. I'm very happy when I am among friends, and I'm very happy when I have the opportunity to share what I know and I'm able to impart it with others, and they understand and are uplifted or empowered by what I share.
What are you most thankful for?
I am most thankful for the mother that I have, because in spite of whatever her own challenges and hardships would have been, she stood strong for me. She was there for me as a child and as a teenager, and she was a role model for me, and she kept myself and my siblings together and made sure that we were loving to one another and had a strong bond, even when my parents had divorced and she became our primary parent alone. She was always there for us. She made sure that we were well educated from primary to tertiary levels. And for that, now that I know where, because of my education, I can go and the doors that have been opened to me, wherever I go, locally, regionally, and globally, I would say I am most thankful to her for having been there for me and having encouraged me to pursue my education and staying with me through my own early challenges.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
I would tell my 15-year-old self that no matter what, never lose control of your circumstances. Be sure about what you want to do. Make sure you're happy with your decisions, and don't let the decisions or the what shall I say, the wills of other people take you off of the path that you know you want to pursue.
I have just two more questions for you, and just to respect the chat room, KG,
Yes.
this is a quick one. KG said, so we are back to not being ready to step away and reveal our true skills if we are downplaying who we are by trying to play none-like. Can you pinpoint anyone who is
Sorry, by trying to play what? Sorry?
by trying to play none-like, like, as a nun?
None-like?
Yeah, yes. When you mentioned earlier, some of the female politicians sort of want to do like a Mother Teresa sort of act. So I think that's where Karen G is coming from. But can you pinpoint anyone who is ready to make a real statement?
If I can pinpoint anyone who's ready to make a real statement,
Yes.
I mean, among these women that I work with, I think they're all ready to make a real statement, which is
Thank
why
you.
it's forward. Now, why I made mention of the Mother Teresa kind of approaches to politics, because I like to say politics is, or yes, being in politics is really about a science. That is why there are so many persons who make a livelihood as campaign managers, for example, because they have gone to school and they have studied it. And some people also go to school and study what is not my favorite pursuit, but I have come to understand what it means to persons who want to be in public life and in politics. Propaganda, for example. So, when someone comes to politics, especially a woman, and they're a bit on the naive side, and they want to be nurturers and to be loving and to portray this soft side, you have to quickly let them know that if you're going to succeed, put that, saintly kind of image aside. Now, this does not mean that you are going to forsake your integrity. You keep your integrity, but you are strong in what you are standing for, strong in your expression. I think you have to be very direct and very forceful and very powerful in your delivery if you want to be a female politician and a successful one at that.
Last question.
Yes.
I mentioned the orchard of mentors, female mentors you've had growing up.
Yes. Yes.
And they have guided you well, obviously, by who you've become today. Now, if you had the opportunity to be in a room with most of them or all of them, what is the one story you will tell them about who you are based on what they have contributed to your life? If I'm probably being unfair, Anande, because we don't have much time, but if you had to summarize that, and I know you're good at summation, so if you can summarize that in a few sentences, what would you like to tell them?
I would like to tell them that because of their encouragement, because of their support for me as a young professional, I have been able to achieve wonderful professional heights and opportunities. But also because of their examples, I remain very humble, that I understand my humanity, also because they have supported me at times when, as I said before, I may not have always been on, at my best, or at my highest point. So because of their example and because of their support, I have achieved much. I remain humble, and I know that there's a much longer road ahead of me, and because of their experiences and their continuing on, that I know that I too will continue on to greater heights.
Anande, once again, thank you so much. This was such a very rich experience, rich learning experience for me, and I'm sure our audience. And I want to thank you very much for participating in the launch of this memorable month of women history. And thank you so much, Anande.
Thank you to Selwyn, and thank you for the viewers, especially the ones in the short box who would have sent questions. And I really am very happy and honored to have started this month when we recognize the gains of women throughout the centuries, and in particular this century, and for the last 20 years of the Beijing Declaration. And thank you for having me.
Anande, you are such, one last thing, you are such a reservoir of knowledge and information and experience. And I may have mentioned to you that my Sunday program, CWS as it is, that is divided into segments. I hope that sometimes you will lend us your voice, your presence on one of these half-hour segments, or perhaps in a panel discussion, to share
Sure.
more of what you do with people around the world. So,
I will be happy to do so.
oh, and thank you. That pleases my heart. So this is Selwyn Collins saying good night. Thanks for listening. And fear not what fear whispers to you. Fear your obedience to it. Good night, my friend.